All right. Good morning, everybody. Let me know when you guys can hear me. Check 1, 2. I don't see myself. Um, hmm. My camera working? Yeah. Oh, that is not the right background, is it? Hang on. The blue screen. I'm on a different, give me 1 second here. All right. Well, I don't know what happened there, but I lost my background. So we're going to go video this on this one. I don't know what happened there. All right. So we are going to do some pre-market prep this morning on ES and NQ. I know, well, we can look at some other things as well, maybe SPY and Qs. But basically, we've done a couple of these so far, gotten some good feedback. So you guys just make sure, just let me know as we go along if you have anything you want to look at pre-market. This is kind of just what I'm going to run you through, just what I do in the morning in terms of in terms of getting ready for the day and putting my pre-market playbook together. So again, like I said, a lot of you guys and girls have seen this before. We're just going to walk through it here. So what I like to do is just start basically in the longer time frame. Okay, I like to start in the longer time frame, just kind of get an idea if there's a discernible trend. Um, what the overall structure looks like, maybe some key swing highs and swing lows that we want to carry over into our shorter time frames. Hang with me 1 second. Um, and then of course the weekly pivot, kind of see what we're doing there. And as I wrote the pre-market playbook this morning, we have not been able to get very far from that weekly pivot. We're just sitting right on it. So we're going to look at how we're dancing around that. It's midweek and we're at the weekly pivot. So let's go to our chart here. Give me 1 second. Let me get rid of this profile. Okay. So we're going to start with the ES. Again, let's go up. Let's go to a daily chart. You can see right here how we're just hanging on the weekly pivot. We really haven't been able to do much with the weekly pivot since Monday. So I put this weekly pivot out every single Monday. Do the calculation on the on Sunday, and we use this pretty much throughout the week. Now, what we want to see on a weekly pivot is we want to see this interaction on early in the week as possible. Oops, sorry, here. Early in the week as possible, right? You could see that we're just really not getting very far from it. We try to convert it, we pull right back to it. We kind of get below it, the bears start to kind of take over, and then we're jammed right back into it. This is another key level on this chart, and it is where the previous contract settled. Okay. Stardust, if you go to TheoTrade main room, there is Tony's pre-market playbook in the navigation. Just click on that and you can enter your email address and you will get that in your email box, before the market opens every day. And, again, it's kind of really all about ES and NQ. I don't really look at other things, but this is kind of what's driving the market, right? So in terms of a definition of weekly pivot, why is this so important? This gives me at least an indication of who is in control, right? So if we're closing on a daily basis above the weekly pivot, that favors the bulls. Okay, it favors the bulls. This is our daily chart right here. Oops. on a second. We'll just leave those levels on because they are in play. So we can see that we opened this week at 65.10, right? We opened the week down here, and we haven't really done much. We've come off of it. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We're over, we're at 66.50. So that can't be the open. Yeah, it is. So 65.10. So we're up 150 handles. This is that big bar, that big Monday bar. We're just kind of hanging out inside of it. So in terms of looking for a discernible trend, we don't really have one. We do have all these lower highs still in play on the daily. So we can clearly see, like if we drew a trend line, we can clearly see that, we still have some overhang up here. We still have a lot to chew through for us to actually rally. And what's been happening with this tape is the bulls have just been struggling with holding the rallies, specifically above the weekly pivot. Now we did get a nice close above it, or right on it yesterday, by a headline that we saw at the close. Is there any substance to that headline? I don't know. We'll see if how we react to this when the market opens. It doesn't look like there was a lot behind it. So as it relates to the daily chart for the ES, we can clearly see we have two levels of interest today. And it is the 66.42 and the 65.94. And you might as well just round this up to the 6,600. So I'm coming into today with two levels that I want the bulls to defend, okay? Because we're above them, so I want the bulls to defend them. The bears have an opportunity to take over. And now let me just clarify something. When I say bulls and bears, I'm just personifying the sell side and the buy side of the tape. So, it's just my kind of way of talking about price action. So if we get and stay underneath this level, we open this back up. We will come back down into this. But inside of this range, and of course it's huge, this was that big Monday bar, we're just hanging out inside of it. And it's carving out a range every single day so far. Okay. So two levels on ES, the weekly pivot. So in our intraday trading, if we hang out above the weekly pivot, you have to give the nod to the bull side, to the buy side. We can potentially rally. All right. And we're going to talk about some shorter time frames in just a second. So let me get rid of all this stuff. Okay, so here's our daily chart for NQ. Hang with me. My weekly pivot has disappeared. And basically, we have, it's not even that, it's really not even that defined here. It's just, this thing is just still in this big box right here. And it's holding on by a thread, in my opinion. So, at the end of the day, we're at the mercy of headlines in this tape right now, and the market's very reactive to that. And the buyers just do not come behind that at all. It kind of gets faded right back down. So it's still kind of a sell rallies tape, especially in tech, especially in the NQ. The focus for me is going to be on this area right here. Sorry, there's a lot of levels on the chart. Again, weekly pivot, we're underneath it, just barely, but we are underneath it so far this morning. I think what needs to take place here is we need to get back above the 612 and the 633. That's also in my playbook this morning for a rally. So all of this down here can just, kind of mulch, just kind of turn over on itself and not really do anything. So key area for us to convert is 24,500. So if we start getting hourly closes above that, above this 24,500, you can see this is where all the resistance is. And then moreover, break structure, meaning come over the top of this stuff here. then I think we get a rally. Then we go get the top of that big Monday bar. But we are just still inside of that big Monday bar right now. So we do have higher lows on the hourly chart. Okay. And it's just dancing around weekly pivot. So coming into today, what I would like to see hold on a retest would be the 24,412. I would activate longs if we get hourly closes above the 24,500. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm rolling into the open with, right? Let's look at, I kind of jumped right to the hour. Let's go back and look at this 4 hour. Let's see what the NQ looks like on a 4 hour chart here. Yeah, it's just, there's not much there. It's just a big old range. And the top of the range is basically 550, is right here at our pre-market high. This was that bar at the close yesterday, kind of juiced it a little bit there, but giving it right back as well. So, I think a lot of these headlines are just trying to keep oil down. And then obviously if oil can stay below 90, that does give the bulls a fighting chance to try to rally this thing. And look, so if we can hold, so let's make our plan here. If we can hold weekly pivot, if we can sustain trade above the 24,500, I'm going to be looking up to the 750 up here. Okay. And now there's some potential headwinds here to get through. And that would be obviously this U settle right here. Now, since these are on the screen, and let's just talk about them for just a second. The contracts that we are trading, if you're a futures trader, okay, if you're a futures trader, we're trading. So right now we're in the M contract, right? We just had a contract settle. So if you guys remember any of my sessions, we were talking about the contract roll. Right? We're rolling from one contract to the next. The futures contracts expire every quarter. Okay, so it's a quarterly expiration. So what I like to do is put the actual expiration level, and I'll show you where I find that in 1 second. I like to put that actual level on the chart. Now, the logic here is that if it holds, we seek the next expiration on the chart. That's the logic. And so again, I have them all over the chart. I've been collecting these for years. So they're all over this chart, from even all the way down into 2021 and 2022. And they will stay there because price has memory, right? It's amazing how price deals with these levels. It's wild. So this is something that the bulls are going to have to overcome. So again, if we're going to get bullish, we've got to get above the 500. We've got to get above the 568 right here. Okay. And we've got to, what I call, convert it. All right. Now I'm going to show you where you can find this information. And you might want to bookmark this page. So remember, it's very well advertised when we're in a contract roll, we're waiting for contract expiration. And this is obviously just for futures trading. If you guys aren't trading futures, this probably is meaningless. In terms of a contract roll, as an intraday trader using futures contracts for, our primary vehicle, we're not very concerned with actually rolling the contract. We are not carrying these overnight. Okay. There's a whole nother trade associated with that. So this is the page. I'm going to share it with you guys here. If you're a futures trader, I highly suggest that you bookmark this page. They do not have a historical list of these. Okay. Yeah, I'll share the chart and you guys can have it. But you want to go find whatever you're trading. If it's Russell, if it's if it's Dow futures, if it's YM, you're going to see where that contract expired, and you want to make a note of it. Okay, you want to make a note of it. So what I basically do is just come down here to the ES, and that's right here. And you can see where the ESH contract settled, and I just put that on the chart, and it just remains there, right? Same thing with the NQ. If you're a Russell trader, maybe you start adding that to kind of what you're doing. All right, so give me 1 second. Now, everything on here is a drawing set. So if you're going to use this chart for anything, you have to save it as a drawing set. Okay? So if you don't know how to do that, you have to right click in the black area of the chart, go down to drawings, and save it as something. I call this my macro chart. Okay? And so while we're here, let's spend a little time on it. We're going to go down to an hourly again. And basically these levels on my chart, I am a very visual trader. I like to see levels, but if you notice what is happening with these levels, it is just like any of the other charts that I share with you guys, any of the other things that I teach here at TheoTrade. If one level holds and overall market structure and price action supports it, we will go to the next level. In other words, right here, that is not a level. What is going on here? Let me get rid of this. These are just levels of interest here. These are like sell side activity. So in other words, if we maintain trade above the 250, God, there's so much movement in the chart that these bars are just so big. But so right here, we have a heads up on the 24,250. Yesterday, we were watching the 250. If the 250 converts, meaning if the bulls can hold this, if buyers step in and defend this level, we look up. We look for this to go to the 333, 312, 333, right? This is that headline that came right at the bell, actually after the bell, right? And we'll just save that discussion for another time. So now overnight, we're seeing how the 333 here, which was resistance yesterday, 333 held. So now this gives the bulls a little bit of an advantage going into it, right? Going into it. And I'm going to be leaning on that side, provided that my shorter time frame stuff starts to set up. So right now, what the main thing that needs to happen here is we need to get and stay above the 24,500. That's the key thing for the bulls if the bulls are going to put a day together. Okay? So that's the key. That is key for us today in our intraday trade. All right? So now on the ES, on the hourly, same thing. It's all about weekly pivot here. Okay. So depending on how we open and how our opening range lands, we're going to be leaning against weekly pivot. Okay. So now our intraday plan, we're going to slide into this. How are we going to conduct ourselves? How are we going to conduct ourselves? Give me 1 second. How are we going to conduct ourselves in the morning, right? So I always let the opening range, tell us who is in control, right? So right now, again, talking through our plan, we've gone and looked at the daily chart, right? We've gone and looked at the 4 hour. We've looked at the hour. There's not really a trend. We're inside of the Monday's big pre-market bar range, right? So there's no real trend. So we want to drill down a little deeper and look at a couple key levels that one or the other side can key off of. We've recognized that as our weekly pivots. They're on our charts. Very simply put, right? So we're going to let the opening range tell us who is taking the ball. What does that look like? Let's go look at it. This is what an opening range looks like. And it disappeared from overnight. You guys will see it in my afternoon session. So it won't materialize until until we open. But basically, all it does is it takes the first, whether you're on a 2-minute chart or a 5-minute chart, it just maps out the high and low of that first bar. And literally, it's as simple as that. If we maintain trade above that high, that is an opening range break out to the upside. That also will add to the bull case. If they cannot do that and we maintain trade below that low, then the bears can take over or the sellers can take over. Okay. And they're going to key off of that weekly pivot, in my opinion. Now, if we are going to have some selling this morning, let's say that, let's say that the news that came in to try to save this thing, if you will, just falls flat on its face, or we have some news that contradicts it. We get underneath this, we've got another key level to look at. That is our pre-market low or the overnight low. Okay. So the bear case, a case for moving back down to, let's say, the 6,600 and the 6,594, the case for that are rather hourly closes below 66.42, and then you got 66.34, call it 66.33, right? So those areas right there activate the bears. Could we just sit here and chop and wait for the next headline? Absolutely. We absolutely could. These wicks are very telling that there's still a ton of indecision in this market. So if you're an intraday trader, buckle up. We're in for another, potentially another wild ride. But if we start clearing out of all of this resistance up here, we do have blue skies above. Now, I mean, we obviously need a big shot in the arm, like some kind of real solid peace talks. That's what this market is obviously keying off of to get that going. Now, the other elephant in the room here is the 200-day simple moving average. I'm going to go back down to the daily chart here. In 1 second. That's where the battle is, right? So you can see how everything is kind of parked right here, and very important right here. Very, very important. So the 200-day simple moving average is at 66.64 right here. Okay, on the ES. The last time that we've seen these closes below the 200-day was Liberation Day. That whole mess, and they reclaimed it, and then we went higher, right? Here's the last interaction that we've had with the 200-day. Right? So we came from underneath it. This was the big dip buy off of Liberation Day. They reclaimed the 200-day, and we're just now coming back to it, basically almost a year later. That is very important to this market. Very important. The first test of it that we got last week or 2 weeks ago saw a very nice rally. Even the back test left a higher low, but they, again, could not sustain a rally here. They could not sustain a rally. I don't. I don't, Paul. I don't know, actually. Hang on. Let me see if that's on there or not. Yeah, it is factoring that into the continuous contract. But this is where it is right now on ES. So another key level to look at on our chart. This is where we are on NQ. We are decidedly below this. We have 3 closes working on a 4th close below this 200-day here. Below this 200-day. So I'll show you what the opening range, Johnny. So the opening range is a study that I use. It literally marks the very first bar when the market opens. Oh, that's why it's not on there. I apologize. I'm not sure why it disappeared. So I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to show you how to use it. It is literally the first opening candle. So depending on what time frame and what kind of bar, what chart you're using. If you're using a 5-minute chart, you're going to put 930 to 935. If you are a trader that let's say you're not really that interested in doing intraday trades, right? You're not day trading. You might want to just go 930 to 10 and give it a 30-minute opening range or initial balance. Okay. And those are things that I look at. So the opening drive of the market, we can get activated in trades very early by mapping out the first bar, whether it's the 930, 932. I'm using 932 because it's a 2-minute chart that I trade on. That's primarily why I use that. Okay. And so again, in terms of an opening range trade, we just simply look for one side or the other to show their hand. That's all we're looking for. We're looking for one side or the other just to show their hand. In other words, above the opening range gives the bulls the advantage. So see, when it comes to intraday trading, especially futures contracts, when it comes to intraday trading, the very crux of what we're doing is just determining, are we going up or are we going down? Right? That's all we're trying to figure out, essentially. And we just want to go with price. I know that sometimes, we will short moves that are going up. We will buy moves that are coming down like this. And it seems contrarian at sometimes. But for the most part, we are going with price action, right? And of course, the longer time frames dominate that context. So if we have bullish price action on a longer time frame, there's a good chance that intraday price action is going to be bullish, right? Now, the other thing that can happen is we could get a headline that sends this thing south again. And if that were to happen, we're going to start to look down here to 24,106. Okay. So this is where the market opened yesterday, this cash level here. This is where our market opened yesterday on the Nasdaq. Nasdaq is weaker than the ES, no doubt about it. But I also contend that the ES drives everything, right? We've all heard that the S&P 500 is the barometer of the U.S. economy, and no truer words have been spoken. It will drive price over here. It is rare that the NQ drives price. The exception to that is during like earnings season. Okay. So during earnings season, if you've got like, a big tech company, like Nvidia, for instance, if we know Nvidia is reporting, that is a case where, well, I mean, it's heavily weighted in both, but that is a case when we have big tech earnings, that is a case for the NQ starting to lead everything. Okay. Let's see if I missed any other questions here. So what you're looking at on the screen, all right, is this green dash line is the 200 day. So what I'm doing is I am pulling the daily SMA. So where it's plotting on the daily chart, I'm pulling it down into these lower time frames. This is the study that I use to do that. It is called the daily SMA. Okay, this is something that is on your Thinkorswim. If you're a Thinkorswim user, it comes stock with your, in your study list, daily SMA. You just add that to your chart, and then you select the length that you want. So from a daily close, the 200 day, and just, make it whatever color you want. So you can see how price is just hanging on that. So that's also some early clues on a shorter time frame that maybe we're getting above this 200 day, or maybe we're going to get below it, and maybe we're going to move the other way. The orange line here is the 9-day from the daily chart as well. Okay. So let's take a look at SPY real quick here. Let's look at hourly on SPY. So you got kind of the same thing. I think SPY has potential to break out above 660 half here. So I would key off of your pre-market high on SPY. And then, of course, below 656, you want to be a put buyer. But, look, if the bulls can put a day together, we do have higher lows here. They just got to come over the top of some stuff. So the call would be like a 660 call with sustained trade above that. But that's going to be a big move. And they can do it. They can get it done. Qs, kind of the same look. Jeez, look at this wick on an hourly bar. So Qs above the 592. So 592 call. If we break out, that has a good look as well. This is not as clean as SPY. So just like NQ is not as clean as ES, the Qs are not as clean as SPY. Whoops, sorry about that. I mean, it's just really, now, what's great about this market is that it's just huge range, big ranges, during the day. So you don't really need to do much here. You do not need to do much in these markets, right? Wait for your setup. We've talked about a few key levels today that we want to key off of. And obviously, look, that our weekly pivots are the main ones that we're going to key off of today, right? So weekly pivot is the deal today. We are bullish above it. We are bearish below it, meaning we're a buyer above it. We're a seller below it, right? I saw Don's email about being bullish or bearish. Nothing is bullish or bearish. I don't disagree with that. Again, it's just my lingo. I just personify that side of the tape as bulls or bears. So just my kind of thing there. That's all. This is also, in conjunction with your pre-market high, this is also yesterday's high right here. So this is a study that I built to map out the daily high and low. Here's your daily low, here's your daily high, and this is the middle of it. All right. So let me see if I missed any questions here. I think Don will be showing up shortly. You got it, PB. And that's what it's about for me. Like, like I said, on your daily, on your dailies and your weeklies, trade your thing. Do your thing. All right. All right. Don's going to take over here in a second with some music. I hope this was helpful, you guys. Sorry for the bumpy start. I signed into a different account, so I didn't have my background set up. I will next time. Everybody have a fantastic rest of their day. Peace out. Peace out.